The screen fades in, rain pounding against a dark, suburban street in Raleigh, North Carolina. A young woman stands frozen on a porch, her silhouette barely visible through the storm. Lightning cracks, illuminating her face, tear-streaked, eyes wide with shock. She clutches a soaked duffel bag, her knuckles white. The sound of a door slamming echoes, followed by the sharp click of a deadbolt. Her breath hitches, visible in the cold air. The camera zooms in on her trembling hands, then pans to a trash bag stuffed with clothes, abandoned by the steps. A haunting piano note lingers, joined by distant thunder. When I was 21, my sister whispered I was a disgrace to our family. Her voice begins, soft but piercing, like a blade wrapped in velvet. 3 days later, my father locked me out. My mother left my clothes in a trash bag on the porch. No goodbye. No explanation. Just silence. They called me reckless, emotional, a stain on their name. But the truth? I spoke up about their lies, and they buried me for it. The screen cuts to black, the words, "This is my story," fading in, bold and stark. Her voice softens, almost a plea. Before I dive in, drop a "hi" in the comments or share where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story travels. The piano swells, urgent, pulling viewers into the unknown. The scene shifts to a warm, opulent dining room in a Raleigh mansion, chandeliers casting golden light across polished mahogany. The Harper family sits around the table, a picture of Southern prestige. At the head is Robert Harper, 58, a retired judge with a jaw carved from granite and eyes that command silence. Beside him, Clara Harper, 55, a church volunteer, adjusts her pearl necklace, her smile practiced but brittle. Their eldest daughter, Lauren, 29, sits poised, her sharp blazer a contrast to the soft glow. A muted TV in the background plays a news clip. Lauren Harper, Raleigh's rising prosecutor, secures another conviction. Robert raises a glass, his voice booming with pride. To Lauren, our legacy. At the table's far end, Emily Harper, 21, sits like a ghost. Her dark hair falls in loose waves, her fingers tracing the edge of a sketchbook tucked under her plate. She's invisible, her presence an afterthought. The camera lingers on her downcast eyes, then cuts to a flashback, Emily at 18, painting a vibrant mural at dawn, her hands smeared with crimson and gold. Another flash, her reading Maya Angelou's poetry in a sunlit park, her lips moving with quiet reverence. I was the shadow in my family's spotlight, her narration begins, introspective, tinged with longing. They wanted power, perfection, lawyers, judges, legacies. I wanted truth, art, a life that felt like mine. Back at the dinner, Robert's toast continues, his words drowning out Emily's existence. Clara nods approvingly, her gaze never reaching her youngest daughter. Lauren glances at Emily, her lips curling into a faint, dismissive smirk. The camera zooms in on Emily's fork, poised over untouched food, her hand trembling slightly. I graduated college last week, she narrates, her voice soft but heavy. Literature, not law. I walked the stage alone. I didn't tell them the date. I knew they wouldn't come. A flashback shows Emily crossing the stage, her cap slipping as she clutches her diploma. The audience claps, but the seats reserved for her family are empty. I was always the strange one, she continues. Sketchbooks instead of legal pads. Poetry instead of precedents. They didn't understand me, and they never tried. The music shifts, a melancholic cello weaving through the piano, mirroring her isolation. The scene returns to the dining room, where Robert's voice fades into a low hum, the family's laughter a distant echo. Emily's narration grows quieter, almost a whisper. I thought love was supposed to see you. But in my family, love was a performance, and I never knew the script. The tone shifts, the music darkening with a low, pulsing drum. A close-up of Emily's phone buzzing on her nightstand, notifications flooding the screen. Her face pales as she opens a message from a friend. I'm so sorry. It's everywhere. The camera cuts to her laptop, a grainy video playing, a college party, Emily laughing, unaware she's being recorded. The video, private and intimate, was filmed by her ex-boyfriend, Ethan, a bitter junior she'd dumped months earlier. Now, it's viral, shared across platforms, her name trending for all the wrong reasons. I didn't post that video, her narration chokes out, raw with violation. I was betrayed, exposed, my trust shattered. But the real betrayal hadn't even started. The scene shifts to the Harper living room, stark and cold despite its elegance. Robert stands like a general, his face red with fury. "You think we raised you for this?" he roars, his voice shaking the walls. "For the world to see you like a disgrace." He hurls her diploma onto the floor, the frame cracking. Clara stands in the doorway, clutching a cross necklace, her eyes averted. "I didn't do this." Emily cries, her voice breaking. "I was violated." Robert's response is venomous. "You violated the Harper name. You're no daughter of mine." The camera pans to Lauren, standing by the staircase, her arms crossed, her face a mask of calculated calm. Lauren found the video first, Emily narrates, her voice trembling with realization. "She didn't warn me. She sent it to my father with a single line, 'We need to act before this ruins us.' Not to protect me. To protect them." A flashback shows Lauren typing the email, her expression devoid of empathy, the screen glowing with the video's thumbnail. The music surges, strings sharp and chaotic, matching Emily's spiraling despair. She packs in her childhood bedroom, the walls lined with old drawings and faded photos. Her hands shake as she stuffs clothes, sketchbooks, and a worn copy of Still I Rise into a red backpack. Clara watches from the hall, her rosary beads clicking, but she says nothing. Emily turns to Lauren, her eyes pleading for a shred of sisterhood. Lauren meets her gaze, unblinking, her silence louder than any words. In that moment, Emily narrates, "I wasn't just losing a home. I was losing the illusion of family." The scene shifts to Emily stepping into the storm, the porch light flickering behind her. Robert stands at the door, his silhouette towering. He places her bank card on the step, rain soaking it instantly. "Don't call. Don't write," he says, his voice final. The door slams, the lock clicks, and Emily is alone. The camera follows her down the street, her figure shrinking in the downpour. "My mother watched from the window," her narration whispers, barely audible over the rain. "She didn't wave. She didn't speak. She just watched." The music softens, a single violin carrying the weight of her loss. Emily finds shelter under a Raleigh overpass, the city's lights blurred by the storm. She kneels beside a rusted barrel, pulling a family photo album from her bag. The pages hold birthdays, holidays, moments she once cherished. Her hands tremble as she tears each page, feeding them to a small fire. The flames dance, hungry and bright, casting shadows on her face. "They wanted me gone," she narrates, her voice hardening, a spark of defiance breaking through. "So I burned their memory. If I was nothing to them, I'd be everything to myself." The camera zooms in on the fire, a photo of the Harpers curling into ash. Emily stands, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "That night, I didn't just lose a family," her voice rises, steady now, a vow to the universe. "I found a reason to fight." The screen fades to black, the music swelling with a single, resolute note, leaving viewers on edge, desperate to know what comes next. The screen fades in, a gray dawn breaking over Portland, Oregon, the city skyline shrouded in mist. Rain patters on the cracked pavement of a rundown neighborhood, where dilapidated apartment buildings lean against each other like weary soldiers. Emily Harper, now 22, steps off a creaking bus, her red backpack slung over one shoulder, her face gaunt from sleepless nights. Her long hair is gone, replaced by a jagged pixie cut. The scissors work a quiet rebellion against her past. The camera lingers on her reflection in a puddle, tired eyes, but a flicker of defiance. A low, pulsing guitar hums, setting a tone of gritty survival. I landed in Portland with $47, a backpack, and a name I no longer wanted. Her narration begins, raw but resolute. Raleigh was a memory I couldn't afford to keep. So I shed it, my hair, my history, my name. I became M. Hart, someone new, someone they couldn't find. The scene shifts to a cramped apartment, its walls stained with watermarks, the air heavy with the smell of mildew. A single mattress lies on the floor, flanked by a folding table and a cracked mirror. Emily unpacks her sketchbooks, her fingers tracing the pages as if they hold the last threads of who she was. Her days blur into a grind of survival. The camera follows her through Portland's rain-soaked streets, her sneakers squelching as she moves between jobs. By morning, she's a barista at a bustling cafe on Burnside Avenue, memorizing orders with mechanical precision, her smile a mask for customers who never look twice. Grande latte, extra foam, she mutters, handing over a cup, her voice flat. Afternoons, she's a janitor at a community health clinic, scrubbing floors sticky with spilled juice and disinfectant. Nights find her hunched over a second-hand laptop in a fluorescent-lit office, inputting data for a shipping company, her eyes burning from the screen's glare. I worked until my bones ached, she narrates, her voice steady but laced with exhaustion. Not for them. For me. To prove I could stand without their name. The music shifts, a soft drumbeat joining the guitar, hinting at resilience. Emily's nights are her own, but they're not restful. In her apartment, she sits cross-legged on the mattress, writing in a leather journal, her pen scratching in a code she invented as a child, a cipher of loops and slashes no one else can read. It was my way of screaming without making a sound, she says, her voice softening. The camera zooms in on the journal, its pages dense with secrets, then pans to a corner where she's pinned a painting, a figure dissolving into shadows, painted with dollar store acrylics and an old toothbrush. Paint was expensive, she narrates, but pain was free. I turned it into something I could hold. The tension builds as Emily navigates Portland's underbelly. One evening, she overhears a heated argument outside the clinic. A single mother, Maria, clutches a toddler, her voice trembling as their landlord, a burly man with a sneer, threatens eviction over a late payment. "You're out by Friday, or I call the cops," he barks, tossing a crumpled notice at her feet. The camera tightens on Emily, mopping nearby, her grip on the handle tightening. She steps forward, heart pounding, her voice low but firm. "That notice is invalid," she says, her eyes locking with the landlord's. Oregon law requires 72 hours written warning for non-payment. This is dated yesterday. It's a bluff, she's no lawyer, but her voice carries the weight of someone who's lost everything and fears nothing. The landlord hesitates, his sneer faltering. Maria's eyes widen, a mix of fear and hope. "You think you're smart," he growls, but Emily doesn't flinch. "I think you're breaking the law," she shoots back. "Want to test me?" The music swells, a sharp violin cutting through the drumbeat, amplifying the standoff. The landlord mutters a curse and stalks off, the notice left in the mud. Maria collapses against the wall, sobbing, her toddler clinging to her leg. "Thank you," she whispers, but Emily only nods, her face unreadable. "I didn't do it for thanks," her narration admits, her voice tinged with resolve. "I did it because I knew what it felt like to have nowhere to go." The scene shifts to a quiet moment in Emily's apartment, where she sits staring at the painting, her journal open. "That night, something shifted," she narrates. "I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting. For Maria, for myself, for anyone who'd been kicked down. The camera pans to a flyer slipped under her door, an invitation to volunteer at ShelterNet, a local nonprofit aiding homeless families. It wasn't a job, she says, her voice lifting slightly. It was a door. The music softens, a hopeful piano note lingering as the screen fades, leaving viewers eager for her next step. The screen opens on a bustling ShelterNet office in Portland, its walls plastered with flyers and children's drawings. Emily, now a few months into her new life, navigates the chaos with quiet purpose, her alias, M. Hart, scrawled on a volunteer badge. The camera captures her sorting donation boxes, her hands quick but careful, stacking canned goods and blankets. ShelterNet was a lifeline, her narration begins, warm but grounded. Not just for the families we served, but for me. It was the first place I felt seen, not as a harper, not as a scandal, but as someone who showed up. The music, a blend of piano and cello, carries a steady, uplifting rhythm. Emily's role evolves fast. She's no longer just a volunteer, she's a file clerk organizing case notes for families seeking housing. Her knack for detail catches the eye of Sarah Delgado, ShelterNet's director, a no-nonsense woman with a sharp mind and a warmer heart. "You're wasted on paperwork," Sarah says one day, tossing Emily a binder. "Start drafting a grant proposal. Let's see what you've got." The camera zooms in on Emily's hesitant nod, her fingers tightening around the binder, a spark of possibility in her eyes. Emily dives in, her nights now split between work and study. The scene cuts to her apartment, lit by a flickering lamp, where she pores over housing policy textbooks borrowed from the library. Her laptop glows with free online courses, her notes scrawled in the margins of a legal pad. "I wasn't trained for this," she narrates, her voice a mix of determination and awe. "But I learned, because I had to. Because every family we helped was a reminder I wasn't alone." Flashbacks show her at ShelterNet, translating forms for a Spanish-speaking couple, delivering groceries to a single dad, sitting with a teenager who reminds her of herself, lost, but not broken. The drama escalates when Emily stumbles on a crisis. One morning, she arrives at ShelterNet to find a crowd outside, chanting and holding signs, "Housing is a right." A local developer, backed by city insiders, plans to demolish a low-income apartment complex for condos, displacing dozens of families. Sarah rallies the team, but resources are thin. Emily, overhearing the urgency, steps forward. "I can write a petition," she offers, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "And they know how to get it to the right people." The camera captures Sarah's raised eyebrow, then a nod. "Do it," she says. Emily throws herself into the fight, her days a blur of research and outreach. The scene shifts to a community center, where she stands before a small crowd, her voice trembling at first but growing stronger. "These families aren't numbers," she says, holding up photos of the tenants. "They're our neighbors, our friends. If we don't fight for them, who will?" The crowd murmurs approval, a few clapping. The music builds, a triumphant cello weaving through the piano, amplifying her rising influence. "I wasn't a leader," her narration admits, "but I was learning to be. Every word I spoke was a step away from the girl they threw out." The petition gains traction, shared across Portland's activist networks. Emily's name, M. Hart, starts to circulate, not as a scandal but as a voice for the voiceless. The camera shows her checking her phone, stunned to see hundreds of signatures. But the victory is bittersweet. Late one night, she finds a note slipped under her apartment door, "Back off, or we'll dig up who you really are." The handwriting is anonymous, but the threat is clear. The music turns ominous, a low drone replacing the cello. Emily stares at the note, her jaw tightening. "They thought they could scare me," her narration says, her voice sharp with defiance. "But I'd already survived worse." The climax of the segment comes when Sarah calls Emily into her office. "The city's housing council wants to meet you," she says, a rare smile breaking through. "Your petition worked, they're pausing the demolition. They want you on their advisory board." The camera zooms in on Emily's face, a mix of shock and pride. "Me?" she whispers. Sarah nods. "You've got a gift, Em. Use it." The scene ends with Emily standing outside the office, the Portland skyline glowing under a rare sunny sky. "I didn't have a family to go back to," her narration says, her voice warm with purpose. "So I built one here, in the fight for something bigger than myself." The music swells, a hopeful piano note carrying the scene into the next chapter, leaving viewers hooked on her ascent. The screen fades in, sunlight streaming through the tall windows of a modest community center in Portland, Oregon. A small crowd gathers, their faces a mix of hope and skepticism, as Emily Harper, now 25, steps to a makeshift podium. She's no longer the gaunt girl who arrived 3 years ago. Her pixie cut is sharper, her posture confident, though her eyes still carry the weight of her past. She wears a simple blazer, her alias M. Hart printed on a name tag. The camera pans across campaign posters lining the walls, bold letters proclaiming, "Let the work speak." A steady drumbeat joins a bright piano melody, signaling a turning point. "I'm not here for a party," Emily says, her voice clear and commanding, addressing the crowd. "I'm here for people who carry the world but never get a seat at the table." The audience leans in, a few nodding, as she announces her run for the Oregon State Senate as an independent candidate. The camera zooms in on her hands, steady on the podium, then cuts to a close-up of her eyes, fierce, unyielding. "I used to hide from the world," her narration begins, vibrant with purpose. "But I realized, if I don't speak, who will? I ran not to be seen, but to be heard." The scene shifts to a montage of her campaign's early days. Emily knocks on doors in Portland's working-class neighborhoods, her breath visible in the crisp fall air. She listens to a single mother's fears about rising rents, shakes hands with a union worker, and speaks at a farmer's market, her words cutting through the chatter. "Housing isn't a luxury," she declares, her voice rising. "It's a right." Her platform, affordable housing, tenant protections, community reinvestment, resonates with voters tired of partisan gridlock. The camera captures a young volunteer pinning an "M. Hart for Senate" button on a jacket, the movement growing. "I didn't have a famous name or a war chest," she narrates, her voice tinged with pride. "But I had stories, theirs, mine, and that was enough." The music swells, a triumphant cello weaving through the drums, but a shadow looms. The scene cuts to a sleek campaign office, where Emily meets with her small team, a scrappy group of activists and a tech-savvy strategist named Jamal. He pulls up a local news site on his laptop, his face grim. "You're polling neck and neck with the incumbent," he says, "but there's chatter online. Someone's digging into your past." The camera tightens on Emily's face, a flicker of unease breaking her calm. "Let them dig," she says, her voice steady but strained. "There's nothing to find." Jamal hesitates, then slides a printout across the table, a cryptic forum post. "Who is M. Hart, really? Ask Raleigh." The music shifts, a low drone creeping in, signaling danger. Emily's narration grows urgent. "I thought I'd buried my past. But the higher I climbed, the harder they tried to pull me down." The scene flashes back to a quiet moment in her apartment, where she stares at a photo of her old self, long hair, a timid smile, tucked inside her journal. She burns it in a candle flame, the ashes curling into nothing. "I wasn't Emily Harper anymore," she narrates. "But someone out there wanted to remind the world who I was." The drama escalates at a televised debate, Portland city lights glinting behind a stage. Emily faces her opponent, Senator Richard Vance, a silver-haired career politician with a practiced smirk. He leans into the microphone, his tone dripping with condescension. Ms. Hart claims to be a voice for the people, but what do we know about her? No family, no roots, just a name that appeared out of nowhere. The audience murmurs, and the camera catches Emily's jaw tightening, her eyes narrowing. I know what it's like to lose everything, she fires back, her voice sharp and unapologetic. That's why I fight for those who've been left behind. Can you say the same, Senator? The crowd erupts in applause, but Vance's smirk doesn't falter, a glint in his eye suggesting he knows more than he's letting on. Late that night, Emily sits alone in her campaign office, the glow of her laptop casting shadows. She opens an email from an anonymous sender, the subject line chilling, Raleigh remembers. Attached is a screenshot of the old video, the one that destroyed her life at 21, now circulating on obscure forums. Her breath catches, her hands trembling as she deletes the email. They thought they could break me again, her narration says, her voice a mix of fear and fury. But I wasn't running from my past. I was running towards something bigger. The camera zooms in on her clenched fist, then pans to a campaign poster, the slogan, "Let the work speak, a silent vow." The music surges, a violin cutting through the drone, leaving viewers on edge as the segment ends. The screen opens on a stormy Portland night, rain lashing against the windows of Emily's campaign office. She paces, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice low but urgent. Jamal, I need you to trace that email. Whoever sent it knows too much. The camera cuts to Jamal in a dimly lit apartment, his fingers flying across a keyboard, lines of code scrolling on his screen. It's not just some troll, he says, his voice tense. The IP traces to a law firm in Raleigh. Harper and Associates. The name hits like a thunderclap. The music turns ominous, a pulsing bass joining the rain's rhythm. Harper and Associates, Emily's narration echoes, her voice heavy with realization. My sister's firm. Lauren wasn't just watching from afar. She was trying to bury me again. The scene flashes to a sleek Raleigh office, where Lauren Harper, now 32, sits at a glass desk, her face illuminated by a laptop. Her polished exterior hides a flicker of unease as she types, her fingers hesitating over the keys. A colleague leans in, whispering, if this leaks, it could tank her campaign. Lauren's eyes harden, and she nods, her silence complicit. The camera lingers on a framed photo on her desk, the Harper family, Emily's face scratched out. Back in Portland, Emily confronts the growing threat. The old video resurfaces, now shared on local political blogs, its grainy footage sparking whispers about M. Hart's secret past. Her poll numbers waver, and her team scrambles. At a strategy meeting, a nervous volunteer asks, should we issue a statement? Emily shakes her head, her voice firm. No. We don't explain. We fight. The camera captures her pacing, her mind racing. I'd survived their rejection once, her narration says, her voice steely. But this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person I'd promised to serve. The stakes soar when Emily receives a voicemail from her father, Robert Harper. The camera shows her staring at her phone, the screen glowing with his name. His voice, cold and commanding, cuts through the silence. Emily, you're dragging our name through the mud again. Drop this campaign, or you'll regret it. The words land like a punch, and the music spikes, a sharp violin underscoring the betrayal. Emily deletes the message, her face unreadable, but her narration betrays her pain. He hadn't spoken to me in 4 years. Now, he thought he could control me again. He was wrong. Desperate to protect her campaign, Emily hires a cybersecurity expert, Mia Chin, a no-nonsense hacker with a knack for uncovering digital trails. The scene shifts to a cramped coffee shop, where Mia slides a tablet across the table. Your sister's firm is sloppy, she says, pointing to a log of encrypted emails. They hired a third party to spread the video, but the trail leads back to Lauren's assistant. She's been feeding dirt to Vance's campaign. The camera zooms in on Emily's face, her eyes blazing with a mix of rage and resolve. Lauren didn't just betray me, her narration says, her voice low and fierce. She betrayed everything I was fighting for. The drama peaks at a public rally, where Emily faces a hostile crowd stirred by the video's resurgence. A heckler shouts, "Who are you really, Em Hart?" The camera catches her pausing, the microphone trembling in her hand. For a moment, she's 21 again, standing on that rain-soaked porch. Then she straightens, her voice cutting through the noise. "I'm someone who's been knocked down and got back up," she says, her words ringing with conviction. "I'm here for you, not for secrets or scandals. Judge me by my work, not my past." The crowd quiets, some cheering, others uncertain. The music swells, a triumphant cello carrying her defiance, but the threat lingers. Emily's narration grows introspective as the scene shifts to her apartment, where she sits alone, staring at a blank canvas. "I could have quit," she says, her voice soft but unyielding. "But every time I wanted to, I saw Maria's face, the families at ShelterNet, the people who believed in me. They were my reason to keep going." The camera pans to her journal, open to a new page, the coded words now bolder, as if shouting. "Lauren thought she could break me," her narration continues, her voice rising. "But she didn't know I'd already rebuilt myself from nothing." The screen fades, the music a tense hum, leaving viewers eager for the confrontation to come. The screen opens on a turbulent sky, a plane cutting through clouds as it descends into Raleigh, North Carolina. Emily, now 28 and a newly elected Oregon State Senator, sits by the window, her hoodie pulled low, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Her red backpack, worn but sturdy, rests at her feet. The camera lingers on her hands, clasped tightly, betraying the storm beneath her calm. A low cello hums, its notes heavy with anticipation, as the plane lands with a jolt. "I didn't come to Raleigh for a homecoming," her narration begins, her voice steady but charged with purpose. "I came for the truth." The scene shifts to a news broadcast, a grim anchor reporting, Lauren Harper, Raleigh's star prosecutor, faces trial for fabricating evidence in a housing fraud case that displaced hundreds. The camera pans across a crowded courthouse, reporters jostling for position, their cameras flashing like vultures circling. Lauren's face, pale but composed, fills the screen, her eyes scanning the room for allies. Robert and Clara Harper sit in the gallery, their faces etched with strain, their prestige crumbling. Emily slips into the courthouse through a side entrance, her movements deliberate, almost ghostly. The camera follows her down a dim hallway, her sneakers silent on the marble floor. She takes a seat in the back row, shrouded in shadows, her sunglasses still on. "I didn't come to save her," her narration says, her voice low and electric. "I came to see the sister who sold me out face the justice she'd dodged for years." But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The courtroom buzzes with tension, the air thick with whispers. Lauren sits at the defendant's table, her tailored suit a stark contrast to the weight of the charges. Robert grips Clara's hand, his knuckles white, while Clara clutches her cross necklace, her lips moving in silent prayer. The camera lingers on Lauren's hands, fidgeting with a pen, betraying her facade. Judge Maya Angelou enters, her presence commanding, her sharp eyes scanning the room. The music shifts, a violin joining the cello, building suspense as the trial begins. Emily watches from the shadows, her face unreadable. Her narration grows introspective, pulling viewers into her mind. "I'd spent years rebuilding myself, brick by brick, but sitting there, I felt 21 again, rain-soaked, abandoned, erased. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to run. But I stayed. Because this wasn't just about Lauren. It was about every lie they'd told, every truth they'd buried. The camera cuts to a flashback, Emily at 21, packing her backpack as Lauren's cold eyes bore into her. Then, a recent memory, Emily signing her first bill as a senator, her pen steady, her resolve unbreakable. "I wasn't that girl anymore," her narration says, her voice rising with conviction. "I was someone they couldn't ignore." The drama spikes when a reporter in the gallery, scrolling on his phone, freezes, his eyes widening. He nudges a colleague, whispering, "That's her, isn't it? The senator." The colleague squints toward the back, then gasps. The camera catches the ripple effect, heads turning, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Emily stiffens, her sunglasses slipping slightly, revealing a glimpse of her eyes, calm, but fierce. "I thought I could stay invisible," her narration admits, her voice tinged with irony. "But the truth has a way of finding you." The tension peaks as Judge Angelou pauses the proceedings, her gavel hovering. She leans forward, her gaze locking on the back row. "Excuse me," she says, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Is that Senator Emily Harper?" The courtroom falls silent, the air electric. The camera pans slowly, capturing every reaction, Lauren's head snapping around, her jaw dropping, Robert's face draining of color, his hands trembling, Clara's gasp, her necklace slipping from her fingers. Reporters scramble, their cameras swiveling, flashes erupting. Emily sits still, her sunglasses now off, her gaze steady, her presence a silent thunderbolt. "I didn't speak," her narration says, her voice calm but powerful. "I didn't need to. My being there was enough." The music surges, a dramatic orchestral swell, violins and drums colliding as the screen holds on Emily's face, unyielding, unbreakable. The camera pulls back, showing the courtroom in chaos, reporters whispering frantically, Lauren's composure crumbling. "What would you do if you faced the person who broke you?" Emily's voice asks, breaking the fourth wall. Share in the comments, I'm curious. The screen fades to black, the music a haunting hum, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats, desperate for the resolution. The screen bursts to life, the Raleigh courthouse bathed in a cold, fluorescent glow. The camera pans across a chaotic courtroom, reporters whispering, their cameras flashing like sparks in a storm. Lauren Harper, 32, sits at the defendant's table, her tailored suit pristine but her hands trembling, betraying the cracks in her composure. In the gallery, Robert Harper, 61, grips the bench, his face a mask of fury and shame, while Clara, 58, clutches her cross necklace, her eyes darting nervously. The air is thick with anticipation, the weight of Lauren's trial, for fabricating evidence in a housing fraud case, pressing down on everyone. But the real electricity comes from the back row, where Emily Harper, now 28 and an Oregon state senator, sits, her presence a silent detonation. The music surges, a soaring orchestral climax of violins and brass, amplifying the moment's intensity. Judge Maya Angelou, a commanding figure with a razor-sharp intellect, leans forward, her gavel still raised from her bombshell question, "Is that Senator Emily Harper?" The courtroom freezes, every head turning toward Emily. The camera zooms in on her face, her sunglasses removed, her eyes steady and unyielding, radiating a quiet power that silences the room. Lauren's jaw drops, her pen clattering to the table. Robert's hands shake, his lips parting in disbelief. Clara gasps, her necklace slipping to the floor, the beads scattering like broken promises. Reporters scramble, their cameras swiveling, flashes erupting in a frenzy. The screen splits, showing news tickers flashing across networks, Senator Harper and sister's trial. Disowned daughter returns. "I didn't speak," Emily's narration begins, her voice calm but resonant, like thunder rolling in the distance. "I didn't need to. My being there was a statement louder than any words they'd ever used to erase me." The camera lingers on Lauren, her eyes locked on Emily, a mix of shock and something deeper, regret, perhaps, or fear. Flashbacks flicker, Lauren at 26, forwarding the video that ruined Emily's life. Lauren at 29, smirking as Emily was cast out. Now, the tables have turned, and the camera captures the shift in power, Lauren's polished facade crumbling under Emily's gaze. Robert leans forward, squinting, as if trying to reconcile the senator with the daughter he disowned. Clara's hand flies to her chest, her breath ragged, whispering something that might be a prayer or a plea. The music intensifies, a violin cutting through the brass, mirroring the emotional stakes. They called me a failure, a nobody, Emily narrates, her voice rising with conviction. In that moment, their silence shattered. The world saw me, not the scandal, not the outcast, but the woman I'd become. The camera pulls back, showing the courtroom in disarray, reporters whispering into phones, the bailiff struggling to restore order. Judge Angelou clears her throat, her voice slicing through the chaos. Order, please. We'll proceed. But the air never settles, the weight of Emily's presence lingering like a storm cloud. The camera follows a reporter slipping out to file a story, her voiceover leaking into the scene. Senator Emily Harper, once disowned by the Harper family, has returned to Raleigh, casting a shadow over her sister's trial. Emily remains still, her spine straight, her silence a weapon. I didn't come to save them, her narration says, her voice steady but electric. I came to witness the truth catching up to the lies they built their lives on. The segment ends with a slow pan across the courtroom, the faces of the Harpers etched with their own private reckonings. The music peaks, a triumphant orchestral swell, then softens, leaving a single violin note hanging in the air. The screen holds on Emily's face, her eyes unwavering, a woman who has reclaimed her power. The tension is palpable, pulling viewers into the resolution to come. The screen fades to a sterile hospital room in Raleigh, the beeping of a monitor punctuating the silence. Clara Harper lies in a bed, her face pale, her hands trembling under a thin blanket. A news report plays faintly on a TV in the corner. Lauren Harper's trial resumes amid family drama. The camera pans to Emily, standing in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the dim light. She's dressed simply, a navy coat over jeans, her red backpack slung over one shoulder. The music shifts to a gentle piano, its notes soft but heavy with unspoken history. I didn't plan to come here, Emily's narration begins, her voice warm but guarded. But when I heard my mother collapsed after the courtroom, something pulled me. Not duty. Not forgiveness. Maybe just the need to see her, one last time. The camera follows Emily as she steps inside, her movements hesitant. Clara's eyes widen, her breath catching. Emily, she whispers, her voice brittle, like glass about to shatter. Emily nods, pulling a chair beside the bed. The silence between them is thick, years of pain and absence filling the space. Clara reaches out, her hand shaking, but Emily doesn't take it. Instead, she pulls a small canvas from her backpack, a painting titled Unseen, depicting a woman emerging from flames, her silhouette bold against a dark sky. She places it on the bedside table, the colors vivid in the sterile room. I painted this for me, Emily narrates, her voice steady. But I left it for her. Not as a gift, but as a truth. I survived without her. Clara's eyes fill with tears, her fingers brushing the canvas, but she says nothing. The camera lingers on their faces, a mother and daughter divided by years of silence, connected only by this fragile moment. The scene shifts to Portland, where Emily stands before a press conference, a wall of artwork from ShelterNet families behind her. The camera captures her crisp white blazer, her hair tucked behind her ears, her presence commanding yet grounded. Today, I'm introducing the Family Accountability Act, she announces, her voice clear and unwavering. This bill protects whistleblowers, activists, and public servants from coercion by those closest to them, family, blood, the people meant to protect you. The crowd murmurs, reporters scribbling furiously. This is for anyone whose truth was silenced by those they trusted most, she continues, her eyes locking with the camera, a direct appeal to viewers. I didn't forgive them, her narration adds, her voice resolute. I didn't forget. But I let go of their weight. I built a law to ensure no one else has to carry that silence. The music swells, a blend of piano and cello, evoking a sense of healing and purpose. Flashbacks show Emily drafting the bill late at night, her desk littered with coffee cups and policy notes, families at ShelterNet hugging her, their faces grateful, her campaign team cheering as the bill gains traction. This wasn't about revenge, her narration says, her voice warm with conviction. It was about justice, not just for me, but for every voice that's been buried. The camera pans to a news headline, Senator Harper's bold bill redefines family loyalty. The segment ends with Emily stepping away from the podium, her head high, the crowd applauding, the music fading to a soft, hopeful note. The screen opens on Portland's vibrant spring streets, cherry blossoms drifting in the breeze. Emily walks alone, her navy coat catching the light, her steps light but purposeful. Children laugh in a nearby park, their voices a reminder of the world she's fighting for. The camera follows her, a woman no longer defined by her past, her red backpack a symbol of her journey. The music shifts to an uplifting acoustic guitar, joined by a bright piano, signaling closure and hope. I don't choose my past, Emily's narration begins, her voice sincere and inviting, but I choose my stand. Sometimes, standing alone is how you become unbreakable. The scene cuts to a quiet moment in her apartment, where she opens an anonymous letter, the handwriting unmistakably Lauren's. I was jealous, it reads. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed you to know. Emily stares at the words, her face unreadable, then lights a candle and burns the letter, the ashes falling like snow. I didn't need her regret, her narration says, her voice calm but firm. I'd already moved on. The camera shifts to a community event in South Portland, a modest hall filled with locals. Emily, in jeans and a gray cardigan, helps arrange chairs, her presence unassuming. A young girl, no older than 12, approaches, clutching a drawing, a woman with wings soaring above a city. This is you, the girl says shyly. You made my mom believe she could start over. Emily kneels, her eyes softening, and takes the drawing. Thank you, she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. The camera zooms in on the drawing, its colors bold and vibrant, a testament to Emily's impact. That girl didn't know my story, her narration says, her voice warm with gratitude. But she reminded me why I kept going, because one voice can light a fire. Emily steps to the front of the hall, addressing the crowd without a podium. People ask how I made it without my family, she says, her voice steady but intimate. I didn't make it. I stopped waiting for them. The audience laughs softly, then quiets as she continues. We don't choose our blood, but we choose our legacy. So choose one that lifts others up. The music swells, a triumphant guitar riff carrying her words. The camera pans to the crowd, their faces reflecting her truth, some wiping tears, others nodding. She turns to the camera, her smile soft but powerful. If this story moved you, share your own truth in the comments. What's one lesson you'll take from this? Let's keep this fire burning. Her voice grows playful, a tease for the future. And subscribe, I'm hinting at a secret that changed everything. You won't want to miss it. The screen fades to a montage, Emily walking through Portland streets, the girl's drawing pinned to her wall, the burned ashes of Lauren's letter scattered in the wind. The music peaks, a final piano note ringing out, leaving viewers inspired and connected. The final frame offers 3 life lessons, displayed in bold text with Emily's voiceover. Own your story. Don't let your past define your worth. Build your table. Create a space where you belong. Speak your truth. It's the root of change. The screen fades to black, the words, "Thank you for being here," glowing softly, inviting viewers to engage and return.